So community is a process, community is a journey. And in order to have a successful process and journey, you need to have mentors. And I'm with one of mine. Very happy to be with Lisa. She has guided me a ton in terms of community aspects, how to get involved, how to learn, how to listen. So much that we'll be giving a talk in KubeCon about that. But I want to hear more from her about how you can make community a proper part of your strategy. What are things that have worked for her? She's built and led and continues to build and lead some amazing communities. So anyway, Lisa, happy to be here with you today. If you want to just give a quick intro about your community story and then share some practical advice for folks out there.
Thanks, Bart. Wow, that was an incredibly generous introduction. I'm flattered. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. My name is Lisa Marie Namphy, officially. I work for Cockroach Labs. That's the company behind Cockroach DB, and I run developer relations at Cockroach Labs. I am also a CNCF ambassador, and I run an incredibly large user community here in the San Francisco Bay Area called Cloud Native Containers, and have been running that for 10 years now, at least, here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So we've represented a lot of open source technology over the years, including OpenStack, Kubernetes, of course, Docker, even Mesosphere, and a lot of small projects along the way. So you name it. And the reason I mention all those things is because if I try to put all of that on one slide, it sort of looks like the dog's breakfast. And that's the position a lot of us community architects and even developer advocates find ourselves in. You find yourself doing multiple jobs. And when you're architecting different types of communities, you have to really, really think carefully about what are the goals of your community that you're building, how are you going to measure it, and really what type of community is it? Is this a project that needs a community? Is it a project that needs some kind of administration like the Apache Foundation or the CNCF? Or is it a project, are you trying to build upstream contributors? Is it doc writers you're looking for? So you really have to think through all of these things. And that's very, very important. And I like to think about this as there's 3 different types of communities with these different goals. And the easiest way to get started and get involved is to join an open source community and start contributing. And there's lots of ways to contribute. You can contribute code upstream, or you can contribute to docs. You can run meetups. There are so many different things. You can write about the technology. I wrote 2 books on OpenStack. And that was one way I got into the community and started contributing even before I was running the user group in the Bay Area. So that's the best way to get started, is to join an open source community that's already established and start to meet people and understand where the gaps are. And those communities can be things like Kubernetes, OpenStack, Docker, or it can be around a project like Istio, or one of my personal favorites, Argo project. There's a lot of ways and projects that do need doc writers. Newsflash, they all need doc writers, and lots of other types of contribution upstream. And then you can start running meetups around that and going to the conferences and developing talks and somehow getting the word out about the product or the project. And that's a great way to start with developer advocacy. Another type of community is a community of local members anchored around a concept like cloud native or containers or surface mesh or networking, security, data on Kubernetes. So those are concepts, and those are very important ways to segment communities so that people understand what they're going to see and learn about. And, if they happen to want to fix security on Kubernetes, if you wait for the Kubernetes user group to come around for a meetup on that topic, it might not be as often as if you started a securities meetup, cloud native security, so to speak. So like Cloud Native Containers gives me a lot of flexibility to talk about a lot of different types of technologies and showcase a lot of end user stories, which I think is always important. Those are the things not to forget about. The training, another really important part of advocacy and community building. So if you anchor it around a concept, then that gives you a lot of flexibility. The third type of community, and this is the trap a lot of us fall into, is a community around one technology. This could be fabulous. Puppet did an incredible job in the early stages building the Puppet camps everywhere. Docker did an amazing job with this, and they had captains and community members and meetups all over the world. Or even something like OpenShift, which is coming from one company like Red Hat, or CockroachDB, which is coming from one company like Cockroach Labs. So then when you're building a community around one technology, it's a little bit different because you might not be looking for upstream contributors. You might just be looking for user stories and to get the word out about this technology and to figure out ways to interact with and engage with your users. And that's harder than just even if your project is open source like CockroachDB, it's harder to focus on one technology and build a whole community around that one. It's, I would say, easier to take that one technology to where it's relevant and, who are you partnering with? Where do your users hang out? And then work with those user groups and those meetups to really get traction and start building your community. So those three different types of community building are extremely important to differentiate, I would say. Another thing I think people don't really think about is, why do you want to build your community? I mean, you ask yourself, if it's around a project or a technology, why do you want the community? What are you hoping to accomplish with community? And what makes up your community? Like, think about all the segments you want to list out, and which segments of the community do you want to focus on first? So the things to really focus on up front is setting your goals, very clear goals, understanding who your community is, learning how and what can be measured. I would say seeking out your community building in unlikely places, like going to hackathons, maybe coder schools, finding where people can, where it's easy for you to showcase your open source technology and get it adopted by community members. And hackathons is one thing that a lot of people don't think about. Obviously, community building involves a large amount of empathy, practicing empathy, listening, and teaching. But really, the content is huge. So as you build community, make sure you're offering something to your community, which is usually around some really great content. If it's a community around developer tools, I mean, maybe you've built some sample apps or something to get them started. There's lots of ways to think through how to get your community started in the first place. Or if you're a developer advocate, what are you gonna build first to help show that the fun and the love and how much joy folks can get out of working with your technology and joining your community, or even contributing to it upstream. So I think the third thing that is the most important thing maybe is choosing how and what can be measured, and then figuring out how to measure that. So back to the different types of communities we talked about, and figuring out what the goals of those communities are, then figure out how to measure these metrics that you decided were important, or that your sponsors might think were important. So there's tools out there that can help you, tools like Orbit and Common Room. But there's also just it's really about goal setting and aligning those goals with the goals of your sponsor. And your sponsor could be your corporation that's paying you, if you're basing your developer advocacy around a certain technology, or your sponsor could be whoever is helping support the user group and contributing to that, whether they're helping host a meetup or paying for some beer and pizza. So those are things to understand what is important to your sponsors, so that you can continue with this community building, and how to measure that and report that back. So if I can summarize, community is amazing. Building community is incredibly rewarding. It's something that you have to have a lot of passion and heart to do, or you're absolutely going to burn out. So I always say, find the people who are doing it like they're not getting paid to do it, because those are the folks that are going to do it with love and do it with the right amount of compassion and inclusivity. And all of these things are super important. and find those organizers that have a lot of diversity in the people, but in also the type of skills. So, community takes all types, right? You definitely need your technical contributors, you need your doc writers, your trainers, your meetup organizers. It takes all types. And if you have diversity of talent, then you're going to have enough people that are going to help you continue on this journey, or you're going to end up doing it all, and it's going to be very difficult. So think about setting your goals up front, understand who your community is and what type of community you're building, learn how and what can be measured. Think about all of the last mile of the different intangibles. Do you take your community to hackathons? Do you anchor around charities and make that the drive to help build a community? Lots of different things that are intangibles a lot of people don't think about. And then don't forget to always practice empathy, listen, make sure inclusivity is part of your goals, accessibility, DE&I, all of that stuff have to be part of your goals up front, or it's not going to happen. And then the content is key. You're either building the best possible product you can and delivering that to the community, or you're building the best community you can by delivering incredible end user stories and content throughout your ecosystem and showcasing community members. If you have great content, you will keep your community tight and you'll keep people coming back, especially if you're running user groups. So those are kind of my things to watch out for. And I'm always happy to do a deeper dive. Bart, if you want to talk about this more and in more detail, happy to do that. So I'm here for you. This is my community too. And hopefully we'll all get to meet in person in real life at some point. So hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks so much, Bart. Really appreciate it.